Let's do a test. Let's do an experiment.
How are you gonna create this kind of
Every time we feel like someone is,
overstepping?
overstepping boundaries, we're going to say exactly this sentence and leave it at that and not explain ourselves. And then
Boom.
we will take note, and then maybe in a few months we'll have another Friday coffee chat about that.
Welcome back, everyone, to another Friday coffee chat. We are sitting here. We are having matcha lattes.
I have an iced one.
I have a warm one because, as you can probably feel, my throat is not doing its thing. But I hope that won't stand in the way of this very exciting episode that we're going to have today.
You guys, I barely have any idea what's about to happen. Like a little bit, but not really.
So, this episode is going to be about toxic colleagues, but not in the way you might think. So we're going to react to the comments to one of our TikTok videos where we asked people to give their most unhinged hacks on dealing with toxic colleagues to preserve their mental health and stay sane. And Eleni hasn't read those comments.
I haven't read any of them because basically it was during Tina's content week and I was like, I'm not gonna read them, but I want to react to them.
So we're gonna do we're gonna react to them. We're gonna basically see if they're good strategies or maybe not so good strategies according to psychology. And
I'm actually so curious to see where they went with those comments. Like,
yeah.
I want to know, is it like super unhinged? Is it a little bit maybe on the more problematic side maybe? Or are there maybe certain, is there certain advice that is actually really helpful for us? I'm so curious. I'm so ready.
I won't spoil anything, but I'm just gonna go into the first one. So, Eleni, have you ever heard of the Grey Rock method?
No.
Me neither.
Grey Rock method.
Yeah.
No, and I also can't really think of what it could be.
So, Grey Rock method, I had to look this up because I was like, wow, what? These people know more than I do, and I'm a psychologist. What? TikTok University. So, Grey Rock method is apparently like keeping, a very neutral gray facial expression.
Like a poker face?
Ish. I think Grey Rock is the Gen Z way of the millennial poker face.
Oh my god. Oh god, okay.
So comments like Grey Rock allows me to be calm because I can be easily invested in revenge.
What?
Or Grey Rocking combined with humming a fun little song. I'll legit forget they're there.
Okay. But like, is this a method like when you interact with them, or is this like a lifestyle?
That's a question. I mean, I guess the comments were quite short to figure that out, but I could expect that you can go both ways. So you can do, like, you can just treat Grey Rock as a lifestyle almost, in which, you just...
Like, is this how you present yourself? Is this, like, maybe especially in professional environments, is this your professional self to be?
I feel like it's more of a coping mechanism to deal with toxicity.
Interesting. So kind of like
you just don't react.
Caring.
Yeah.
I don't react and therefore I don't care.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
You're just a Grey Rock.
I wonder whether this works, right?
I don't know. But like I could imagine that you just don't give anything away. And especially, like, I think we've talked about this in one of the Toxic Colleagues episode. Like, when you're just very neutral and you don't give anything away, anybody who maybe has narcissistic traits or has some kind of, like, dark traits in them have nothing to hook you on,
Yeah, it's basically you don't give them any reaction. And that's the thing, a lot of, like, when it comes to toxic people, they thrive on your reaction.
Exactly.
Like, everything
especially
is to
emotional
get your
reactions.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. I wonder whether this works and how it works. I would love to see it, like, play out.
But would you implement it? Is it a yes or a no?
You know what? Because I feel like I don't understand it super well, but I will say that I do think that especially at work and when it comes to like toxic interactions, not reacting emotionally and not giving other people the satisfaction of like they have hurt you or like they have pushed your buttons is a very good way of dealing with it.
Yeah.
And kind of like stopping it there and not giving it, you know, space to become something bigger than it already is.
Apparently it stems from like abusive relationships. So like that's a coping mechanism for dealing with abusive relationships. And that can also happen at work.
The only way to deal with this is to get out.
There's also another way. There was this one comment. Happy rock. It's like gray rock, but happy. Because there's nothing a toxic person hates more than seeing you happy. So I'm the perkiest bee in town.
No. I love it. I love that. Yeah. Honestly, yeah. You just don't give them the satisfaction of showing that they have hurt you, even if they did.
I feel like it's even the other way around. You make them even madder because you're happy.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, I can see that. I can see it has some merit.
The next one is about, let's say, distancing yourself. So there's this one comment here that says no work friends or any of your social media. No WhatsApp groups, no nights out. They're your colleagues, not your mates.
You know what? That is very aligned with what I believe.
Yeah?
Yeah, in many ways. I do think so. I think we also discussed this a bit, obviously not to that extent, but like a bit in one of our very first Friday coffee chats, like episode, I think
do friendships friendships at work exist or something like that. Yeah.
Exactly. So we talked about it right at the start, and I agree that when you go out, and I think especially when you go out and you go party, and a lot of the times alcohol is part of it, and things can get a bit
messy,
wild and messy, maybe. It's just something to keep in mind.
Mm-hmm.
And you can do this with people you trust, right? Colleagues you trust. But if there's like toxic people that also go, yeah, they see you outside of work. They see you in a non-work, non-professional environment.
Mm-hmm.
And I would be very careful with that. I agree. Yeah. Same with social media. Why have colleagues on your private social media? I would find it weird. Have your work bestie. Sure. But why would like a random colleague of mine, why would they have anything to see on my social media, on my private social media, right? It's none of their business what I do. That's the way I see it. That's the way I see it. And I think especially when it comes to a toxic environment. Like I remember when I was doing my one of my internships, right? And people would go out together and would get drunk together. And it did blur a lot of boundaries. This is what, they had fun.
Trauma bonding.
They had fun. Yeah, but not even that, right? Because sometimes there was conflict in the team. It becomes very messy sometimes. And, you might find yourself in a situation where you say certain things, it's like, you're not like your professional self, and you may say things and then regret it.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, did I really say that? Because you almost had this illusion of your friends. And again, do it with your work bits. 100% people you trust, yeah. But it's not always like that. So I have to say, like for me, work is work. Private life is private life.
I agree. I feel like there is a certain boundary there that can be blurred really easily whenever you have colleagues that seem very friendly, but sometimes you don't even know their intentions, and sometimes you don't know what these people would do if, let's say, shit went down. You don't know that.
Yeah, I don't know. I have too many trust issues for this stuff. Like, I'm a very trusting person, but not with these things.
The next one is probably one of my favorite ones out of all of these comments.
Are we gonna laugh?
Hear this out.
Okay.
There's actually two of them, and they're both really good. So the first one is, I pretend that I'm a scientist looking down the microscope at new bacteria. Fascinating.
No.
I loved it. I low-key loved it. You know, the detachment and you just observe them roaming.
But also like the way of coping where it's like, I'm here and you guys are somewhere there. And it's like, we have nothing to do with
I'm
each other.
looking into the microscope.
Like different levels.
But there's also another one that I think you will like better. I pretend I'm in a reality show and give dramatic confessionals in the bathroom mirror.
To be a fly on the wall in that bathroom.
Yeah.
I love it.
But
I love
that's
it.
like
So hilarious.
But that's giving such main character energy, I have to say. Like when you think about a toxic environment, in a way where you are the main character, but you're so detached, and yet the drama is happening and you're just sitting there looking at it. I'm not saying that that is the best way to approach it, but it is a coping mechanism.
I was about to say, actually, from like a psychological point of view, this is a detachment. This is seeing things from a distance. It is kind of creating a barrier so you don't take things seriously. Does it have a bit of, I am better than all of you energy? Yes, definitely.
Does it help?
If it helps,
maybe.
If it helps you cope, you know what? If this is the way, because it's not like you are being actively rude to someone, right? It's just a cognitive strategy to help you not take things seriously and not let them affect you too much.
Exactly.
Who are we to say what's right and what's wrong?
If it's working, it's working. The next one is actually also something that I have learned thanks to TikTok University. Have you heard of malicious compliance?
Yeah.
Yeah? I haven't. And for me, this was like, I heard about the behavior, but I haven't heard of the label that is called malicious compliance.
It is basically that even if if you're asked to do something and it's not going to work, that it's a bad idea, you don't say anything. You're like, sure. And then it's like fire behind me and I don't care.
And there's a comment that goes exactly to what you were saying. Malicious compliance. When something goes wrong, I just simply say, but that's the rules, right?
Gaslight them.
I mean, it is true. If you are working in a flawed system and you tried maybe one time, second time to kind of make remarks that the system is not in its best shape and maybe some processes need to change and maybe you weren't heard, then what are you going to do?
It's like there is a reason why people get to that point, right? And I don't know if I agree that this should be the baseline, but we all have been in environments where, maybe we saw things coming. We saw people basically, on their way to run against the wall. And maybe we told them, hey, this will not work because of this and this. If you're not being taken seriously, if management is like, no, but these are the rules, or this is how we want to do it, or this is because person XYZ decided that this is the right way, then what are you going to do, right? Because at the end of the day, especially if it's not your own business, there is a certain level of care that you can have, but also at some point it needs to stop because it's not your job.
Exactly.
So I don't know. I don't want to say like I approve it, but it's like I can see
where it's coming from,
and I can see myself doing this as well if put in a situation where I'm like,
yeah, I think there's a lot of disappointment when you get to the point where there is malicious compliance involved. I think there is a lot of disappointment because maybe you've tried multiple times to kind of like ring a bell and just be like, hey, this is not working that well. Maybe we should change something. Yeah. And you weren't heard or you didn't feel heard and you maybe saw that nothing was changing. At some point, you just give up.
Yeah, it is that. It takes a lot to get there, I think. But yeah, usually there is a history.
If you've been enjoying this episode and all of these unhinged hacks, you can like and comment to this video what is your strategy for dealing with toxic workplaces. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more Friday coffee chats. Apparently, there's also something that the royal family has said that has to do with dealing with toxicity.
Which
Maybe not
royal
directly,
family?
but
Which royal family? UK
never-
one?
Probably, I don't know. It's a royal
The
family.
English one, okay.
Never complain, never explain. Observe and strategize more than you talk.
Never complain
Never
and
explain.
never explain.
It's very similar to the gray rock, I have to say. Like, it's very, maybe the gray rock is more of a, you keep a very straight face, like a poker face.
Yeah.
But never explain, never complain, never explain is more of a, I have nothing to complain about, so I don't want to stir up drama. That's how I interpret it. And the never explain is, I'm not going to explain my actions to you or my decisions to you. That's how I interpret it.
Yeah, I feel like it's catchy. I'm thinking how feasible it is. Realistically, how feasible it is
Probably
and how
not.
helpful it is, right? Because never complain. Okay, I agree. You're going to have a lot easier time at work when you're not the person who's bringing problems. People like people who bring solutions, not problems. But also like in the context of, toxic people, like, I don't know, but there's a point, and when that point is reached, complain.
Yeah.
Like, it's not good to never complain. I think this is also something, we need to see it a bit more nuanced, I feel, because it really depends on the situation. Never explain. I think we do need to stop over-explaining.
Yeah.
100%. But what do you do if your supervisor, for example, asks you for a specific explanation?
Then you need to. Then it's part of your job, kind of.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering how that would work. But there's aspects of it
I think
that
perhaps
that are helpful. Just,
Yeah.
not be like never explain and never complain, but, thinking a bit about being a bit more balanced.
Yeah,
in
I
your
think it
approach.
depends on the situation, who you're interacting with, and whether complaining or explaining is appropriate in the situation or in that relationship. Because with your supervisor, for instance, explaining might be appropriate. Maybe not necessarily complaining, but exerting some kind of dissatisfaction with something that is sometimes needed, because if not done at the right time, it can escalate.
But you know what I'm thinking right now, actually? It just popped in my mind. Never complaining could also be in terms of gossip. Don't complain about other people to others, right? Like, gossip, honestly, yeah, it's not going to go well in the long term, I feel.
No.
Like, there will be a time where things will be revealed.
Exactly.
Let's say. So I agree with that.
And I think that ties very well with the previous two, where, you have the gray rock method. You kind of keep neutral to any of the news, let's say, that you get. Maybe somebody gossips with you, but you don't give anything off. And that can be a protective mechanism because you're not getting involved. Another one that I thought would be great if Apple could integrate it. Hello, Apple. I have 2 SIM cards. My work only has my work number, so I can turn the work SIM off.
Yeah.
100%, yeah.
But I would also say that a lot of jobs, not ours currently, but they provide you with a work phone.
Yeah.
So a second phone. I think it's so important not to have your work phone as your personal phone. Like, that's like the epitome of work-life integration, and you know how we feel about that. But basically, just keep them separate.
It's a question of
100%.
boundaries.
Yeah, exactly. 100% approved and agree.
Same. Okay, let's talk a little bit about direct confrontation, because we know
We
that
love
toxic
that.
colleagues enjoy gaslighting and enjoy seeing how you react to gaslighting. So here's a couple of things that people say. I actually love calling people out. I'll do it in front of anyone and everyone. I don't know how exactly they're doing it. That would be nice to know.
I was about to ask how. How do you do that?
But there's a second comment, not towards this one, but another one that relates to it. It's like, I just tell them straight, man, you're being a mean person, or you're very condescending.
I love it. I wish I had
Yeah.
the balls. I wish I could do that. But then I'm wondering, right? Because with these kinds of things, I like the directness, I like the openness, I like the, just straight away being like calling out bad behavior, basically. I'm all for it. But what do you do when they turn around? They're like, but what do you mean? And the gaslighting starts.
And then it's like,
oh,
you
feel
live
like
in parallel
you did
realities.
This. Yeah, exactly. Because a lot of the toxicity doesn't really come from very blatant, very openly rude things. It's very the in-between, the passive aggressiveness, the in-between the lines, the tone, right? And this gives so much room for like interpretation and discussion. And I'm wondering, how do you deal with this?
Exactly. And you never know how that person, because that person might actually interpret that as an insult.
Yeah.
So where's the line?
Also, I really can we reply? Can we ask them whether they also do this with like supervisors or something, or managers? I would love to know. And then we invite them to do a Friday as guests to a Friday coffee chats.
Gurus. The gurus of TikTok. We will identify them.
Oh my god, that would be such a great series, actually.
That would be a great series.
Let us know if you want us to do that.
There's another one here that I am going to implement, I think, because I've had a couple of times when this happened, I didn't know what to say. And I was just like, I wish I knew what to say to this person.
Okay, I'm curious.
So when they're asking too many personal questions, say, I am surprised you feel comfortable enough to ask me that.
Fucking love it. I will implement this. Like, that is honestly, because it has happened so many times, and not just at work, just like randomly, my people-pleasing tendencies come into play, and I answer, and I'm like, then afterwards I feel so bad because I'm like, why did I answer this question? It's none of their business. But that is a good one. Can we say it again? What was it exactly?
So it sounds like this. Take notes. I am surprised you feel comfortable enough to ask me that. And apparently for this person, it worked every time.
I believe it. Honestly, if I would ask a question and this would be the response of someone, I would feel so embarrassed. I would feel so apologetic and be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I've overstepped a boundary. Then again, this might be because, we were not toxic.
Look, if we ever implement this...
Like, what do you mean? But, who knows? We will let you know if it works. Let's do a test. Let's do an experiment.
How are you going to create this kind of...
every time we feel like someone is, overstepping boundaries, we're going to say exactly this sentence and leave it at that and not explain ourselves. And then we will take note, and then maybe in a few months we'll have another Friday coffee chat about that. I actually really like this.
This one?
This one, yeah.
Documentación. What do we think about
Receipts.
that?
Receipts. Honestly, I think this is the number one and maybe also the only way to deal with gaslighting.
Yeah. I mean, there is a comment here, and there were actually many about this. I just selected one of them because actually a lot of these strategies overlapped, and a lot of these strategies converged into one.
Yeah.
So I basically kind of like selected one or two from each theme, let's say. But it's to document every interaction with an email to yourself. To have a receipt in your inbox somewhere.
Like every single interaction, or just the ones where you're like, oh, that didn't go so well, maybe it would be good to keep tabs on that one.
I believe the second option, they don't mention it here.
Because can you imagine how many emails you will have afterwards?
Then like the person from the data or from the IT department is going to be like, these people are taking a lot of space on our server.
Yeah. I do have to say though, I use the balance formula for that a lot. I take notes of decisions being made, by whom, when, who was involved, what the discussions were, what the arguments were, and what the final decision was. Because a lot of it, and I think, this is just one example, right? And this doesn't necessarily have to involve toxicity in any way, but I think we tend to forget a lot. And I think especially when it comes to toxicity, it's like, because it's smaller, minor things, it is good to document everything. Because you have a lot more of a case if it's multiple small things and you can see a pattern.
Yeah.
And this way you also don't forget anything, right? And I think so. I think it's good practice anyway, at work when it comes to decisions, but also very good practice when it comes to not so great interactions and potentially toxic interactions, because it is sometimes difficult to pinpoint it because they're so passive aggressive and you can't. It's usually not like someone told you, "Oh, you are," enter whichever insult you want. So I think that's a good one. I think that's a good one to have a system for that.
We are closing off this very unhinged episode and very real episode with two things that I thought were actually quite good, and they're actually quite simple. One of them is this person wrote it with a period between every word. And I love it. Do not take anything personally.
Yeah, agreed. How will you get there? I think that's like the bigger question, because it is true, right? It's work. We shouldn't be taking things personally, and once we stop taking things personally, you take away a toxic person's power. You take it away from them, and you take back control over your own emotions, your own behavior, your own thoughts. But it's a question. How do we get to not taking things personally?
I feel like for me, so the way I interpret the not taking things personally, it is the sum of all of the things that we have discussed previously. For instance, not giving off that you reacted to their gaslighting with, your facial expression, or not giving off a reaction. Documenting everything, making sure that as facts, this was said, this was said, this was said. You just document that. Really making sure that you have set boundaries between your work and non-work, not having these people on social media, to not give them potential opportunities to creep into your personal life. I feel like all of these things can amount and predict you not taking things personally.
I think it's also a lot of cognitive work, though.
Yeah. Reappraisals for sure.
It's a lot, in the moment, because I think that, depending on how you are and what your personality is, and in general, how you see the world, depending on that, it might be, if someone is being mean to you, then sometimes the first reaction is, oh, what is wrong with me?
Yeah.
Right? And I think this is maybe also like somewhere a learned reaction. And to unlearn that can be quite difficult, but it does help a lot to think about. I always have this saying in my mind where it's like, other people's opinion of me is none of my business. Mm-hmm. And I really like that, because it's like, okay, that is a you thing. If you have read the book, The Courage to Be Disliked, this is also a point that comes up again and again. It's like this idea of there are my tasks and there are other people's tasks. And other people's opinion of me is their task, not my task. So I'm not going to, grab someone else's task and make it my own.
Yeah.
And having this in mind in that moment sometimes really helps when, you feel that you can feel. You can feel when you're taking things personally. Like, it upsets you.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Like, having this mental capacity to just say stop in that moment whenever you feel like things are piling up, and just be like, okay, these are just facts, and it's none of my business what they think. It's none of my business how they act. What I can do and what's within my power is to control my reactions and to give some self-compassion to myself, and to just understand whose job is what.
Yeah. And also, actually, maybe to add to that, for me personally, it sometimes helps to, if I know a person is toxic, and I'm going to use this, I would say use this carefully, and don't just call everyone toxic because they said something that you didn't like. There is a big difference there. But if you know for a fact, this person is toxic, it helps to just tell yourself that. That's a toxic person. The issue is not with you.
It is with the
person, because they're, for whatever reason, are going through something or can't really cope with certain things that is making them toxic, and that is their problem. Yeah. But that helps.
And the last one, and then we're going to close this episode, is resigning. So I've got 2 examples here. I resign, girl. I resign. I love me, so I'm not letting anyone ruin my mental health. That's one. The next one is maybe not unhinged, but I just leave toxic workplaces. The minute I feel uneasy, stressed, going into work or office, I quit.
Yeah, more power to you. I think if this is an option, do it. Because you can't change toxic people.
Yeah. And it's not your job to change them either. I think that's also something that we need to learn, because some of us may go into a workplace and, really try to make this person change, or really try to, let's say, fix them in that sense, or give them more empathy than they deserve in that sense, to the point where it really costs them their own mental health. And this is where perhaps a more drastic boundary needs to be set, and that is quitting.
I love these. That was such a good one. I feel
So,
that was such a good chat.
To
I enjoyed it.
recap, we've got the Grey Rock method, we've got malicious compliance, we've got the mental reframing, where you kind of think that you're in a reality show or you're a scientist looking at bacteria, whatever suits you. We've got the boundary setting, where you clearly create a line between your work and non-work, for instance, with your work phone, with headphones, anything like that. We've got the documentation, so you document everything, especially the interactions that are toxic. We've got the separation on social media and on information that you are sharing with these colleagues. So again, as Eleni said, these colleagues are not your friends, and maybe your work bestie is, but not everyone is, and there needs to be some boundaries there. And yeah, maybe use the I'm surprised you feel comfortable enough to ask that. We're gonna
This is
try.
my favorite one. Guys, this is my favorite one.
So that's your takeaway from all
That
of it.
is honestly, I think almost all of them are great, but I think this is the one where I'm like, I will start using this today.
Nice.
Like, this is top notch.
Thank you,
I love-
TikTok University. And finally, if things get really rough, a drastic boundary needs to be set by quitting. And sometimes it really is about putting yourself first in a way where, yeah, sure, you will find another job that might be better for you, but no job is worth your mental health. We hope that you enjoyed this episode. Let us know if you did, because we actually loved talking about
This
this.
is amazing. I'm gonna go back now and read through all the comments.
Yes,
Finally,
please do.
I'm allowed to.
And let us know if you've enjoyed it, if you would like us to do more of these, to kind of gain, let's say, the popular opinion on what people are doing at work, or what strategies they use to manage their workplace. And let us know that in the comments below.
I love it. It was like a massive brainstorming session.
Yeah, right?
I love it.
If you like this Friday Coffee Chat, support it by buying us a digital coffee. You can find the link in the episode description. And if you found a hack that you think your bestie would love, send it to a friend. See you in the next Friday Coffee Chat.
Bye.